Hello everyone, welcome to this bonus episode of the Sky Sports F1 podcast. Well, I say bonus, maybe emergency. I don't know if we're in emergency podcast territory. Craig Slater.
I answered the call.
Yeah.
999 or whatever it is. Yeah.
This is following the news that we now know that Guenther Steiner will not be the team principal for Haas for this season. He's going to be replaced by Ao Komatsu. Craig, you've actually spoken to both Damon Hill and David Croft, who were in the office today. Their reaction. Well, I'll tell you what, let's hear their reaction first to the news. So you started off by asking Damon how much Guenther Steiner is going to be missed.
Guenther became a bit of a celebrity thanks to the famous Netflix series and the behind-the-scenes filming of him, and he's absolutely, as you said, a kind of huge character, very decisive, very confident and very sure of what he's saying and stuff. Maybe this is part of the mix. You know, he wants to win. I don't know what the real reason is for the departure, but I mean, it's a big loss, I think, to the sport, because he was... Fans liked him, he attracted people, he was controversial, he was outspoken, so maybe he didn't get the results that Gene Haas wanted.
Well, yeah. I mean, he was a good fit for Haas in that sense. Put a small team, not very successful one, on the map. Now, listen, I've heard he was out of contract, Crofty, and he and Gene Haas had divergent views in terms of how they wanted to take the team forward. Well, what have you been hearing? Why have they parted ways?
Well, firstly, it's Gene Haas's team, and Guenther Steiner was getting the lion's share of the attention, and I'm sure that didn't go down hugely well with the team owner. But that's no reason to get rid of somebody. Their performance on track last year might have been part of the picture as well. Great on a Saturday in terms of the way that Nico Hülkenberg, for instance, managed to get into the top 10 in qualifying. But then part of the reason for their great qualifying performances undermines really their performance on the track on a Sunday. So they would go backwards through the field. And that, for an owner like Gene Haas, was probably not acceptable. Finishing bottom of the table, that's not what Gene Haas would want. So Guenther, I think, has paid the price for that. He has got other business interests, and I'm sure he'll be absolutely fine in that respect. But I'm with Damon on this. Formula One's lost a massive character, a very popular character, and someone who transcended the sport somewhat. He was, number 3 team principal, I think, behind Christian Horner and Toto Wolff.
In terms of publicity and airtime and that kind of thing.
Exactly, and that's good for the sport, that fans want to associate themselves with a team like Haas because they really like what Guenther stands for, and that's like the underdog and taking it to the big boys. And I really think we have lost a great character around the paddock, and one who I hope returns in another guise somewhere in the future.
Okay, people have been telling me from sources inside the factory that there'll be a lot of disappointment that Guenther has gone. He didn't get a chance to say goodbye, by the way, which I think will disappoint him. And there was a little bit of a coterie, picking up on what Crofty said there, that were maybe feeding the line that, you know, why is Guenther releasing a book and getting involved in a US comedy series and doing all this Netflix stuff when the team are flatlining, flatlining at the bottom as well. But it's a big call, and if they're not going to provide extra finance to rebuild the factory and all that, well, you know, how is Ao Komatsu going to do any better?
I don't know, and don't forget, Guenther was actually one of the masterminds of putting the whole thing together in the first place as well. With Gene, Gene was really the investor that he got him on board. If I'm correct, aren't I?
Yeah, you're
David,
right.
There. So you know, he actually, you could say it was his team, but he didn't own it. And as you said, he's getting a lot of attention and distractions. And you interviewed him before Christmas, and we were talking about his
Christmas lunch. It proved the last supper. It was the Last Supper.
The Last Supper. Yeah, well, anyway, he was talking about this TV series that they're planning and stuff, and maybe that was too much for some people, because as a team principal, your primary job and your focus has to be on what you do. But it wasn't his fault that he was popular and he was became a celebrity. So anyway.
Yeah. Last thought on this. Apparently Gene Haas is saying that this is not a signal I'm about to sell the team. I'm in it for the long haul. I don't even want big new investors. I'm happy controlling as it is. Where do Haas go from here, and how are they to take the next step, really, Crofty?
I don't know. Where do they go forwards? Well, I don't see how they do unless investment is made and that money is given to the team. They're not operating anywhere near at the limits of the cost cap. But you look at the teams around them. Sauber, they will become Audi in a couple of years' time. Williams have got their house in order and have risen now to 7th, and with the potential to go further there. AlphaTauri are more closely aligning with Red Bull and moving their aero design base to Milton Keynes in a bid to get further up the grid, and Haas are kind of, well, they're not doing the old adage, if you stand still in Formula One you go backwards. They're not even really standing still. They're just not investing, and they've lost a real motivator and a leader of people in Guenther Steiner. And I wish Ayu Komatsu all the best, but can you honestly see a scenario at this moment that Haas aren't the team that will finish bottom at the end of the season?
So that was the reaction of David Croft and Damon Hill. Craig, you've been across, interestingly, I think, just for our viewers at home, you've actually been across this story for a little bit longer than finding out at 5 p.m. today.
Yes, I mean, I learned about this at the weekend, but some people I've spoken to say they've known about it for a couple of weeks now. And when I did check in with the Haas team today, with people I speak to there, that they've told me that Guenther Steiner found out about this towards the end of December, was how they phrased it to me. He hasn't had an opportunity to go and say his goodbyes at the factory. He is still in the UK at the moment, and that's interesting as well. But as far as I can glean, a surprise to him that he would not be getting his contract renewed, and that's why I suppose we have to be careful about our wording here. It's not that we can't say he's been sacked, because his contract had come to an end, and Gene Haas has decided not to renew it. But I mean, I spoke to him not long before Christmas. We did that kind of jocular Christmas interview, which has turned out to be a Last Supper, Matt. So surprise. I even when I was first told about this, I was a little bit dubious as to whether it was indeed the case, but there we are.
Yeah. What about, before we talk about the future for Haas, just let's talk about Guenther's legacy at Haas and what he's done for that team, where he's taken that team from where it was to where he leaves it. Do you get a sense that there is an element of sadness around his departure, that he hasn't had the opportunity to have a sort of fonder farewell and be able to say goodbye to members of the team? It does seem, I mean, looking at the press release, there are no words here from Guenther. So
no.
I don't get the impression it's been smooth sailing, his departure.
No, I mean, yeah, he's thanked for what he contributed over 10 years, as Gene Haas rightly says in his brief remarks about Guenther, because he was there from 2014 and the 2 years in preparation for joining the grid in 2016. 2018 was their best year. They finished 5th in the Constructors, and it's been rather downhill from there. Last year ending up flat last, with other teams around them noticeably improving not just improving their car, but improving their overall infrastructure, maybe in Williams' case, in AlphaTauri's case, getting closer to Red Bull and taking the absolute maximum in terms of technical input from them. But in terms of what Guenther Steiner has brought to Haas, which is your original question, I mean, a galvanizing figure, put them on the map. I mean, we make a lot of the fact that he's the third most prominent team principal. He gets the most television airtime behind Toto Wolff and Christian Horner. But that, when you're a team at the lower reaches of the standings, that's surely priceless. And funnily enough, I had in my Christmas lunch with Guenther, when we were talking about his book that's just come out, Surviving Drive to Survive, the fact that he's so prominent on that series, that he's involved in this CBS workplace comedy as an executive producer. He's not appearing on it. I asked him, is Gene Haas all right about all of this? Does he mind you having all this glory while the team are not really performing? And he kind of looked at me to say, well, yes. And from that I understood, me doing this is advertising Haas. And yet, since this news has come out, I have had people telling me that while Gene and Guenther, I think, had a decent working relationship, there was a bit of a lobby within the Haas team for those who weren't so fond of Guenther Steiner, who were casting this up. is it the Guenther Steiner show? You know, how should he be doing all this while the team aren't performing so well? And maybe that has had an effect on him ultimately being replaced by AO today, which, as I understand it, and you're saying, you know, how are people taking it at the factory? I think there are quite a lot of people there who are very disappointed Guenther has gone. Like everywhere, there will be people who are thinking, oh, well, I'm maybe not so sure I like the guy who's taking over so much. And then there'll be others who will think, no, I understand where AO is coming from. This is a positive move for me. But I think, yes, it's going to take a little bit of getting used to at Haas, all of this.
In terms of them, AO's in tray and what he has got to deal with, and perhaps you can allude here to some of the issues that Guenther might have faced in the last few years at Haas. What has he got to do in this first year? Also, I would argue he's not got long. I mean, we saw James Vowles move into the role at Williams quite late on in terms of getting a run on the start of the season last year. It's going to be quite a tight turnaround to steer that ship of Haas through those first few races of the season. What's he got to contend with?
So this is interesting, and this is something I haven't really heard so much of until today's news. And you're asking, where was the fissure between Gene Haas and Guenther? Ultimately, Gene has pulled the trigger here, and it's him not renewing Guenther's contract. So there were divergent views on the way forward for the Haas team. And Guenther Steiner, I've been told, desperately wanted significant investment in the factory in Banbury and on the general infrastructure of the team. He thought they'd outgrown that facility, rather, and they needed to invest a bit more to move the team forward. And I've been told, and Gene Haas isn't here to contradict this, so I will try and seek that end of it, that Gene wanted to see progress on track before. It's not that he wasn't going to spend the money, but he wanted to see the team moving in the proper direction before he would spend heavily again on a fresh equipment and expansion of the infrastructure at that Banbury base. But those in the Steiner way of mind were lamenting the fact that the facilities were way behind their competitors. Somebody said to me today, I had to block four engineers and I had to block 4 other staff members in to park my car today. Well, it's little things like that. If you're looking to attract the best from Alpine or even Mercedes or others, they're going to come round and, well, what's the operation here? What's my workplace?
The car park is better at Mercedes.
And the car park is the first thing you see. Well, the car park at Mercedes wasn't very good either.
Oh, really?
But they're addressing that as it happens at the moment. So let's not get bogged down in car parks. But these things are important. I mean, their hospitality area at the track, you'll have seen, is by far the smallest. They had that rather comical little pit wall as well, didn't they, with the three people on it. So everything's rather been done on a budget, and so I'm told Guenther wanted that addressed. Gene was reluctant to. So AO is going to have to work within his means. He's going to have to be, you put it in football parlance terms, one of those managers is going to have to coach with what he's got. Mm-hmm. And in the release today, it talked about the focus being on engineering. That's obviously where he comes from. I guess he made his name chiefly in F1 initially, at least anyway, at what was the Renault team. I think he was the main architect of that passive DRS they had back in the day, which was a kind of clever device to stall the front wing when you exceeded a certain speed. So he's a man with ideas. I'm not sure he's everyone's cup of tea at Haas, because there'll have been those that like the avuncular extrovert.
He's a change.
Steiner. He's a complete change. Complete change from all of that. So, I mean, listen, you also got to guard against the sort of media attitude that we liked Guenther, and it's clearly a loss for all of us unless he turns up on Sky Sports F1 at some point. Who knows? As a pundit, but I mean, there is that aspect of it, but. I think the other thing, we hear Simone Resta's gone as well from the team as well today. Guenther Steiner, amongst other things, had very close links with Ferrari. Now, I'm not saying that the Haas-Ferrari relationship is going to tank because of him going, but, people do matter in this business. The ability to attract individuals or to get the best out of individuals if you have personal connections, which Guenther Steiner did have, and was good at that kind of thing. People will have seen probably his relationship with Mattia Binotto, for example, and them driving into the track together. So that is another issue that Haas will have to wrestle with. He had good connections, Guenther, and they'll have to find a way around that. And I'm not saying it's going to damage the Ferrari relationship, but will it be as intimate and as cooperative as it was when Guenther was there?
Final point, really. And I wonder if we had Andreas Stella obviously go promoted from within at McLaren, replacing Andreas Seidel. And I wonder if other teams perhaps are looking around and going, we've got a lot of potential within our senior management here at this team, and it gives it's a great story, isn't it, for someone who's a senior strategist, senior engineer. James Vowell's another example, obviously going from Mercedes to Williams to that role of team principal. And it might be a good omen, and they might be looking at that going, oh, that really worked over there. Yeah. Look at the impact that Stella had. Can we replicate that? Yeah,
horses for courses, I suppose. That's absolutely right. I suppose at McLaren they had Zach to do all the political stuff. And a lot of the media as well, which Stella has grown into. And Stella has grown into, and Stella has been a revelation, really. He's waited a long time to get a team principal job, and has been tremendous in it. Vowles, again, you did sense he was, and Toto intimated it himself, was ready to take on that leadership role at Mercedes. I think Toto was quoted as saying, the only way we could promote him further was for him to take my job. AO seems to be, let's see how front of house he is. But then again, without question, Haas have technical issues to wrestle with and resolve. So making him the top dog, it does make a degree of sense, I suppose. It makes them focus, I suppose. Except that, do you then does he get distracted from the engineering tasks to have to focus on more of the politics and the front of house stuff? So that will be interesting. If he's trying to fill Guenther's shoes, there's going to be an awful lot. Well, no, obviously he can't do that. It's an inch. How do Haas take the next step? They're in that odd situation where they have Dallara build the chassis. They take a lot of parts from Ferrari. They've kind of been. Are they going to spend the cost cap? They'll say they will, but will they ultimately? They're slightly anomalous compared to the other teams on the grid in terms of the not seemingly wanting to go and expand the factory and to emulate the teams that ought to be their direct rivals. So big season for Haas. Let's see how they get on. The link to that is the future of the team. And one or two people might look at this today and say, well, what does it say about Gene Haas? Is Gene Haas in this for the long haul, or by with this notion that he's maybe not wanting to spend the money that Guenther wants? Is it a sign that he's holding out to sell, perhaps, without investing for someone else to take it over? I am assured not the case from people who have been on internal calls with him or had briefings with him over the last few weeks when this kind of topic has come up. He's in it for the long haul, nor is he seeking to dilute his own investment in the team. He is convinced that maintaining the personal ownership of Haas is the most sensible way forward, and he is not about to sell. Yeah, fascinating insight. Thank you, Craig. Not at all, no. How many days until the start of the season? 52 days. I'll tell you what else have we got coming up? We're hopefully the F1 Commission will ratify
sprint races.
The way the
that's coming
sprint
soon.
is going to be run. Well,
Yeah.
I'm just looking at the next F1 Commission meeting.
I actually think we've done pretty well to make it to the 10th of January without an emergency podcast.
Well, I mean, there's what's going to happen.
Give our listeners and viewers more key.
5th of February, I
5th
think,
of February,
F1
okay.
Commission meeting. Now, whether they rubber stamp what we'll get for sprints or not, but the format for sprint qualifying and the sprint. By then, let's see. Let's see if there's more goings on at the FIA. We've had all those resignations there. That's going to be a big narrative for the start of pre-season testing. But yeah, launch season soon underway, and it's a lot of excitement to see to what extent Red Bull can be reeled in this year. Can anyone do it?
Thank you, Craig. Thanks for your time. Much appreciated. There we go. Confirmation, Guenther Steiner stepping away from Haas. Ao Komatsu going to take the team principal role. If there's any more breaking stories, we'll bring them to you as soon as possible here on the Sky Sports F1 podcast. We'll push the emergency podcast button. We will get them to you as soon as possible. But for now, and hopefully maybe for the end of this week, that's it. Bye for now.